The Cyber Minutes podcast is for educational purposes only. The views expressed by hosts and guests are their own, not necessarily their employers. Advice discussed is general advice. We promote ethical discussions, not illegal activities. Listen responsibly. G'day everyone and welcome back to the Cyber Minutes podcast. My name's Max and today I'm joined by Flynn as always. We have some pretty cool topics to go through today. Namely, there are some massive disruptions that happened around banks and finance, so we'll get into that, as well as some AI report that's come out from ASIC. Usually if ASIC does a report on something, it means that, future regulation could be around the corner. So we'll get into that. There's also some issues with Microsoft Copilot, and Russia's had a bit of strife in the last few weeks. So let's hop right into it.
Yeah, so basically the massive disruptions, I suppose it's going to be a pretty quick topic because we actually have no idea what's going on. It's a little bit scary what's happening because, even from a customer-centric thing, like I couldn't log on to my banking app. A lot of people that couldn't, they were locked out of their banking app. So there's clearly something going on, I suppose, across the whole industry. Like this is across multiple banking that you couldn't log into certain applications.
Yeah.
But if you try to find anything about this online, there's basically nothing. We don't know what is going on. I suppose we'll keep you updated. We're not going to know what's going on for a pretty good amount of time.
Yeah.
That's basically all there is to say on it currently. There was an incident. I suppose maybe just be aware of any scams if anything does happen. I don't know if it was any sort of breach. I think it's probably unlikely at the moment, but we'll see, I suppose.
Yeah, and there's been industry rumors that both Flynn and I have sort of heard, but we don't know how much truth there is to them, so there's not really much point discussing them. Some people have said there's a word of, big DDoS attacks that have happened over the industry or, potentially something even worse than that. But yeah, there's no real confirmation of that stuff at all. And it is really weird that there's no news sources of it. Makes me think that there's, maybe some media scrubbing going on or some communication between the media and, the big banks. But yeah, it's a bit hard to tell at the moment. But, as always, just remain a bit vigilant around your banking apps and, just be aware of sketchy stuff happening, which I guess is a good segue into our next topic, which is a bit of an annoying one. I think a lot of people have received these new smishing links, so SMS phishing links, which get sent to us on your phone. You get texted a link, and normally text smishing or phishing is quite it's similar to email phishing. There'll be a message, they'll say, hey, either your account's been logged out, click this link, or we need you to complete some action, click this link. But at the moment what we've been seeing is it's none of that. It's literally just a 1 word or 2 word thing that you get texted, and then just a link, just like something.xyz.
Yeah, even for me, I'm getting ones that are completely just a link, and it's very clearly a scam as well. Like if you're getting a .xyz link, how often is that not a scam unless you're doing your own personal development on something?
Yeah, exactly.
I was trying to, I suppose, I think I was speaking to Max when this was originally happening, that we both had a little bit of a scare, like, oh shit, this is a 0 click.
Yeah.
Probably very, very, very unlikely that that's the case, because it is so wide. Definitely be getting tackled right now, which is still happening while we're currently speaking.
Yeah.
I also kind of had the thought that maybe it's the scammers are really, really unsophisticated, and B, they're trying to see, or they have discovered that the people that are clicking these links aren't particularly looking at whatever the message is anyway, and they're going to regardless. I think that's pretty unlikely as well. Like, surely if you put in a very generic, you have a MyGov notification, check here, you have a fine, surely that's more likely to pick up people.
Yeah.
But I have no idea. Who knows? Maybe it's just a super, super unsophisticated person. It's like a 3-year-old in some country that's doing all this. Because, it's the typical message at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Something XYZ link.
Yeah.
One thing I think's interesting about this as well is that you would think that telco providers and whatnot should be able to block things like this.
Yeah.
Like if a mass message is going out to, the entire New South Wales, you would think that they should be able to block that.
Yeah.
And I suppose my theory is that they can block that, but they choose not to. Yeah. Because, in law enforcement in the past, that when they need to go to them to, get particular information or anything like that, they can always get it.
Yeah.
So they can, intercept messages, they can block messages, but they're choosing not to. Whether there's a financial reason behind that, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I would be, I suppose, interested if anybody in the comments could let us know why they think that that's the case, or if they don't block this stuff. That would.
Yeah, and like exactly like you said, it seems weird because it should be easy pickings to be able to be blocked. It's just like a one-word text and then a link that's being mass sent out to all users. Like that should be pretty straightforward. So yeah, potentially they think, the telcos think that there's relatively low risk because most people won't click it, and the threat actors are using their network and having to pay for data. So, I guess there's some potential of financial gain there as well, but it's just a weird one. But we'll let you know if anything changes with it.
So a bit of a funny one as well. I don't know if you saw in the news, Max, that Russia put a pretty big fine on Google.
Yeah.
I'll let you guess how big the fine is.
I don't know, like a billion or 2 billion or something.
No, so it's 20 decillion. I'll read you out decillion. I'll read you out how long the number is. So it's 20 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0, and then there's another 7 zeros after that, I believe. So 10 triple zeros after the 20.
Yeah, right.
Decillion.
So 20 trillion radio.
Trillion, I believe.
Right, trillion dollars. Cool.
Yeah. It's just outrageous.
Yeah. There's not much more to say there. Like,
it feels like a very big hissy fit moment. Like, oh well, you know what? You owe me $1 zillion.
I'm fed up with you. You owe me $1 gazillion. $1 billion, million, gadillion, billion, gazillion dollars. All mine.
Yeah. It's just like, it feels very, very childish, I suppose.
Yeah.
I suppose at least it's entertaining because nobody's going, oh no, Google's in trouble.
Yeah, I think everyone's probably just laughing at it. Do we know the reason for the fine?
I believe it was they took news network offline or something like that.
Yeah.
It was a very who cares thing.
Yeah.
I mean, not with you in the Russian government.
Yeah, well, Russia clearly cares there. They care them enough to fine them $1 gazillion.
Yeah, but I mean, there is not that amount of money in the world. So,
no.
So who knows? Maybe Google will pay up. Yeah.
I doubt it. I guess while we're on the topic of Russia as well, so Russian users and contributors of Linux have also been completely banned from using the system and banned from contributing completely, which seems to be a political decision to lower risk. It's a bit of an interesting talking point because is it really fair to ban a contributor to an open source, benefit of the world type thing just because they're located in somewhere that's a political adversary of where you're located? Maybe, yeah. Maybe not.
I suppose really weird sort of fine line. I think in theory it shouldn't happen because in theory with open source, and this is on the Linux kernel specifically, by the way.
Yeah. Right.
In theory, there are contributors. There's American contributors, there's Russian contributors. They're conflicting from a political standpoint, but because of that, they all come they either, both have backdoors in the system, or, they both are actively, I suppose, getting rid of these vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the essence of open source, and I suppose the beauty of open source. That being said, I can completely understand why you would want to remove, I suppose, Russian actors. Maybe there's something there that we also didn't know. Maybe there was a lot of attempted malicious contributions.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But as you said, it seems like it was a political decision from, I can't remember what the guy's name is. But, I'm sure there was also probably push from, other governments around the world to sort of remove that.
Yeah, we can probably assume that that's probably the case there. And I mean, you're just lowering risk for yourself, which I can totally understand too. Because, with those contributors not given access whatsoever, the risk of a backdoor going in from one of those state actors, that's, effectively zero at that point. Which I can understand too, but is it fair? That's kind of not really something you can, for sure answer.
Yeah, I suppose at what point does it become, it's not necessary? I'd say it still is currently.
Yeah.
If you ban enough places around the world from accessing a code repository, does it just become not open source?
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I don't hate the decision and why they would want to do so, but it kind of does go against the whole aspect of open source in a sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's right.
So there's been some movement around AI in Australia. Aspect released a report around AI governance. They basically showed a lot of gaps and where companies aren't hitting the mark, and where they think that AI governance should. I don't think there's anything really new in what I saw from the report. Like, AI governance is a little bit weird because it's a little bit of the Wild West. The only a great standard to go by. I can't remember this exact ISO number it's based off. But as far as I'm aware with AI governance, it's basically you have a workshop to begin with. You say, do you actually need AI? Which I think a lot of companies actually do bad, especially in Australia. I saw complete BS, but it was like Australia is the most AI addicted country in the world. That's probably BS because how do you measure that?
Yeah.
But I think in this that we are just putting AI in everything is true.
Yeah.
And you should really be having a sit down beforehand of does the AI do a better job than a human? Are we actually creating more work here by implementing AI? I think a lot of the case, yes, we are. Because, if you have to validate every input of the AI, are you even making your life easier?
Yeah.
And then you have those initial workshops, and then you have your other things in place, like policies and procedures that ideally your employees are following. But I'm sure Max, that can be an absolute nightmare to get people to actually follow.
Yeah, and it's like... putting those trainings in place, most people don't pay attention to them anyway. It goes sort of in one ear, out the other, the trainings, workshops, and, all the other stuff that you do, informational messages, emails, none of it really goes through a whole lot. But what I found interesting about this is, ASIC being, a government body, when they notice something, usually the first step of eventually, writing legislation for it or putting in, restrictions in place or, working to find some solution is a report sort of like this. So for me, it's kind of an indicator that, government regulation or change is probably coming around the corner sooner than we may think. And, a lot of that comes with the risks associated with AI and especially putting your data into companies that might not give a shit about your data and that, don't really care or don't have the right procedures in place to, make sure that there's protections in place for the, end user, or they're, stealing data, using it to train their models without informing the user, which that may not be strictly legal either. So, I think it's probably a good thing. I think that, it's important to have a set of procedures and, have a government body in place that is actively aware of, new technologies that come out like AI. So, it's really interesting, and I'm sure we'll see some developments very soon after this new report, as the government sort of typically does. So,
yeah. I mean, there are things in place currently, like there's the New South Wales AI Assurance Framework, which is more specific to like specific governing bodies.
Yeah.
But it as you said, a lot of data stuff, but also is the AI model liable to discriminate? Which, if anybody that works with AI, yes, they all are. So it's kind of how it works. It's based off training model, and it chooses a path based off that. But you kind of want to limit that risk as much as possible. Which the difficult thing about AI is it's inherently based off training data. And
maybe the decisions it makes are based on what's the most likely thing in its training data to come next, which means that could be a discriminatory thing. Unintentionally the company could give it some a large amount of data, and it may find conclusions itself which may either not be correct, maybe a bit discriminatory, maybe a bit conflicting to what we generally know. Here's a good example, right? Say you're in a classroom at school, and one of the teachers says, you have A or B? It's a multiple choice question. And a teacher says, who thinks that the answer is B? And 90% of the class put their hand up. And then who thinks the answer is A? And 10% put their hand up. If the answer is actually A, but 90% put B, then the A, if we think of this like an AI model, the AI model is going to say the more likely answer to be correct from its training data is going to be B, even though it's wrong. So, that kind of situation where the more likely, the more common response to show up may be incorrect, misleading, discriminatory, mistaken, any of those other words, that's something that we just need to be careful of.
And also, as I'm sure you know, Max, like it seems like the AI job market is really starting to ramp up now. The AI people, I suppose, that are listeners, now is a good time to really start drilling down on your knowledge and stuff like that, because I am assuming the next year, 2 years, it's really going to go up everywhere. It seems like a very good space to get into.
100%. And if anyone's been scrolling through the LinkedIn jobs and stuff, and just any other keeping up with the market, as I generally do, then you'll probably see as well that a lot of positions are requiring some level of AI expertise now, and that's not something that I've just seen, but I've also heard from people in the industry too. So it's an interesting one. So make sure to keep yourself skilled in AI moving forward. I would say, I think that the more what does skilled mean? We're going to hear that a little bit more. I think now it's just are you proficient enough to understand what it is, how it works, how to improve your productivity using AI. I think that's probably enough. But definitely keep an eye on that space.
Yeah, and I suppose in another sense, government is going to obviously put in regulations around this stuff, hopefully sooner rather than later. But then they're also going to think of the massive upskilling of, I suppose, the Australian population into being proficient with AI. Particularly in schools like that. AI is not going anywhere, and obviously we don't want the essay to be AI written, but we need to come to a middle ground of they're using the tool efficiently.
That's right,
and in a safe way. So we have kids proficient but also knowledgeable.
And whatever the government puts out as this is important to know about AI, and whatever they peddle, employers are going to follow suit as well. They're going to say they're going to want people who understand that too.